Hi, welcome back, everybody. I am Nancy Siegel, Solutions for the Workplace. With me is Ellen Steverson, Starting Block Career Services. We are here today to continue our bite-sized career strategy podcast. This series is really focused on interesting Google searches that are career related. Zippia.com put together a survey of what people in different states were Googling career-wise. So this week, we are going to talk about Idaho and Michigan, who were talking about social media and work memes, and Oregon, which was talking primarily about calling in sick. So we're going to talk about social media and your career. Good morning, Ellen. Tell us some of your thoughts about that.
Hi, Nancy, and welcome everyone back. Let's explain how we're tying in calling in sick with social media. Let's address that right away. One of the reasons we're talking about how to call in sick today, in addition to the social media, is many people make the mistake of staying home from work when they're really not sick, but then they're on social media posting. And guess what? Your coworkers find out, your boss finds out, and that's a real dilemma. So we're going to combine these two topics because I think with the Great Resignation going on, and we talked about that in the last podcast, people are frustrated at work. You know, we're all kind of going through a change with this pandemic, and these work memes are everywhere. So let's discuss this. Why is Idaho and Michigan looking up work memes? We don't know why, but again, a work meme is basically anything that is tied to, usually it has a picture with it, and then some snarky little comment that, yes, can be funny, but is it really appropriate, Nancy?
It's certainly not appropriate on your work computer, and it is never appropriate during duty hours. So those would be the first two things. But I think it goes beyond that as well. Employers, including the federal government, and certainly individual supervisors and hiring managers, check people's social media. And so if you are thinking about looking for a new job or being part of the Great Resignation in some way, shape, or form, among the things you should do, in my view, is a social media audit. And so I would start by using somebody else's machine other than yours and Google yourself and see what comes up.
The reason we're telling you to go to somebody else's computer is, I would hope by now everybody knows your computer is adapting to you, as you know. And if I look at a pair of shoes, the next 3 days I'm getting advertisements from every shoe company, right? So you want to go to another computer that you normally don't use and do it that way. And then you want to figure out, same with your Facebook, all of the social media platforms, how can you scrub them, cleanse them, remove stuff to make it more professional?
And so Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I never thought the words TikTok would be coming out of my mouth.
And then probably others out there. Or what's really becoming more popular is people are having their own websites now. And I just had a client last night that when I pulled up his website, everything in his way he was writing was a very negative undertone. He would make little snarky remarks, kind of like the memes. And you really want to read your work from somebody else's point of view and how they will see that.
So do you think that the answer is not being on social media at all?
I think people need to start thinking about social media like a billboard above a highway. And you cannot control who's driving past that billboard and who's going to see it. So again, I think you need to be very mindful, have private conversations and funny conversations with people over the phone or live, but watch what you're saying online. I just think it's common sense, although most people forget. And then we go ahead and start posting things because we just get so used to being on it. I got family members that post things all the time. And I think, what are you thinking? Would you put that on a billboard? And the answer is no. And then when I mention it to them, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And then they take it down. So again, be mindful of what you're putting up.
Well, and a lot of people try to lock down their accounts so nobody can view them. But it's kind of like deleting something from your computer. It never really goes away.
Absolutely. Bringing it back to the billboard, you can say, oh, well, if I tilt the billboard a certain way, maybe nobody will notice it. If I use a certain font, nobody will notice it. And that's just not true. But, again, some of the memes that I read and look at when I was preparing for this, they're funny, but they really are, putting other people down. It's not hard to figure out, oh, Bob put this up and he's talking about his boss. You need to be able to understand people are going to know what you're really talking about. And is that appropriate? Are you really falling into a bullying category or just not professional? Are you constantly posting about one person? That's bullying. So I do think it's an important subject to think about.
Yeah. And the data around the percentage of employers that look at your social media is pretty clear. Now, I think it's also important to understand that in the federal government, reviewing people's social media and just overall social media use in terms of the job search is less common. But that doesn't mean that individual hiring managers aren't looking and forming opinions. And when I work with hiring managers, I remind them, of course, like we all know, not everything you see on the internet is true. And there hasn't been a lot of case law that supports companies in doing those kinds of social media searches without disclosure. But regardless of that, people are doing it on an individual level. And once a hiring manager sees something on social media, they can't unsee it. And so it's more than memes. It's more than narrative. It's also photographs, which sort of takes us to the how do I call in sick part, right?
So, I'm sure people have saw something on social media. They know somebody's called in sick. And the next thing you know, there's a picture of them laying on the beach. Okay. That is when
uncool. It's uncool.
That's right. Totally uncool. And your coworkers are going to get annoyed and things like that. And I mean, it goes on in every profession. There's always somebody, annoyed at somebody else because they were posting on social media or whatever. Let's just stop that, people. If you call in sick, you're sick. And if you aren't sick and you just need what I call a mental health day and you choose to take a sick day, that's fine. But please don't get on social media and post it all over the world to brag that you're doing something and you forget your boss could see that. Or worse, a coworker who then is snarky and telling the boss.
Oh, I've had coworkers come to me as the boss and show me pictures, tell me things, and wait for me to do it. And I guarantee you that before these individuals have come to me, they've told all their friends. And so it's not just between that one coworker and the boss, it's the entire team is aware of it. And even if your boss doesn't call you out, it does nothing for collegiality with your coworkers.
Absolutely. Or I'd even say in the private world, your network, because when you call out sick and your network and your friends, with network, I mean your friends, they know you're not sick. And then you're posting things on Facebook and things like that. A few months down the road when you're like, hey, I'm going to look for a job, help me. Or, do you know of anyone hiring? I'm going to start thinking, well, I don't want to refer a liar. This is somebody that I know lies and does things that are inappropriate. So you really are tarnishing your brand, your reputation, Think forward. Don't call in sick and then put it on social media. I do want to mention there are a few things that you should be doing. When you call in sick, keep it brief. There's absolutely no reason to go into any details about your illness ever. Let your team know ahead of time if you think you're going to need to call in sick. Only mention important information about a project or whatever. Again, no details. And then really avoid picking up phone calls. So again, people do take off from work and then they're furious. People are calling all day when they're sick or not. But at the end of the day, you need to say, look, I'm not feeling well. I will not be answering my phone today between 9 and 3 or 9 and 5 completely. So be upfront, discuss it with them, and then take your day off. Anything to add on that, Nancy?
So I just want to emphasize what you said. There is no reason to disclose your illness, and that if your bosses are asking what is wrong with you, that is, from a boss perspective, a potential issue. If in fact your boss asks you for a doctor's note to verify your illness, all that note really needs to say is that you were under a doctor's care for that time period. There's no reason to disclose the specifics of what's wrong with you.
Absolutely. And I was amazed. I did have to go to a little ER the other day, a couple of weeks back, and I was surprised when the physician said, would you like a note for your employer? I really kind of thought that was done. And I said, oh, are people still doing that? And he said, yep, absolutely. And I said, can I see it? And so he's like showing it to me. And I said, oh, you don't need to fill it out. I work for myself. But again, it was very professional in that it just said it was under doctor's care. I asked him, I said, well, you don't write down what's wrong. And he said, no, I don't do that. He goes, but some doctors do. So again, make sure you're directing your physician not to put the details, just to say you were in his care.
Right. And so we're not anti-social media.
Nope.
That's not what we are saying at all. But view your social media from the lens of a hiring manager. And while we're just mentioning social media, I want to say take a hard look at your email address as well. And while that's not technically social media, it is presenting your image to potential employers. And we've talked before about some of the silly and embarrassing email addresses we've seen that do nothing to bolster an individual's professional credibility. And when I mention this to people, the response is, oh, I've had this email forever. I believe you, because if it's still AOL, you have had it forever.
One funny thing in high school shouldn't carry along with you till you're 60-something years old. Please, people, fix your email addresses.
You do not need to let go of your AOL account, but establish a professional sounding email account for your job search.
And right now, Gmail is what's considered professional, and typically it's a version of your name. Ellen Steverson at, or Steverson Ellen or Steverson E. So some combination, and please do not add any numbers that can represent your date, because we've talked about that before in age discrimination.
Your birth date. Yeah, your birth year. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about social media, memes, and how you should think about this kind of stuff vis-a-vis your job search. I am Nancy Siegel, Solutions for the Workplace. With me is
Ellen Steverson with Starting Block Career Services. It's been great with our little bite-sized strategies. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit Nancy or Ellen's website for additional information about our services, a free tip sheet which highlights our discussion today, and be sure to tune in to our next podcast which will be posted soon. Thank you.